My name is Aryeh Citron, and we are learning page Pei Gimel of Likkutei Torah by Midbar. We're actually starting with the end of Pei Beis Amud Daled, which is Ois Gimel of the beer on Veidaber Moshe El Roshei Hamados. And we were talking about the fact that the neshama of man was created last because in the source, the body of man was created last because the animals and other physical items in this world have a higher source. And we said that even the neshama, compared to those other things have a higher source even than the neshama. Based on this, the Alter Rebbe continues, we will understand the pasuk that says, "L'chu lachmu b'lachmi," come eat bread with my bread. And this is referring to the Torah. The Torah is called Hashem's bread. What does that mean? The pasuk says, "Ki hakol moitza pi Hashem yichya ha'adam," that on what comes out of the mouth of Hashem, the man will live. And the man is with a hey hayadia, meaning to say the man. This is referring to Adam de Le'ela, the supernal man, which is Malchus of Atzilus. That level of Hashem is called man, like we see in Kabbalah. This is also the level of Memale Kol Alman, the way Hashem's energy comes into this world in a way of Ischalkus in a distinguished manner, meaning to say in a differentiated manner, I should say. For example, we say Einei Hashem, malachim that are called the eyes of Hashem. Tiana aznecha kashuves, your ears should listen. Aspects of Hashem that are compared to ears. So, what does it mean that Yichya ha'adam, that Hashem, the level of Hashem and Malchus called Adam, lives on the moitza pi Hashem, what comes out of the mouth of Hashem? So the word moitza has two meanings. One is the simple meaning what has already come out of the mouth of Hashem in the 10 utterances with which the world was created, which correspond to the 10 spheres of Atzilus, which are in Malchus and is associated with the Shem Ban, the 52-letter name of Hashem. And that interpretation refers to mankind in the simple sense. Mankind lives not from the bread alone, but from the 10 utterances of Hashem that are infused in the physicality that we eat. However, there's a second pshat in moitza. Moitza can mean the source of, not what comes out of, but the source of. Like moitza mai means the source of water. Meaning to say, the source of the 10 spheres of Ban is from Shem Sag, the 63-letter name of Hashem, and that is the same as the world of Tohu, which in Kabbalah is called the world of Nikudim. And this comes from the peh of Ak, the mouth of Adam Kadmon. The way it works Kabbalistically, the Alter Rebbe says, is that the eyes of Ak, their gaze causes the kalim for the iris that come from the mouth of Ak. So this is what creates the world of Nikudim. In any case, the Adam de Le'ela, which we said is Malchus of Atzilus, lives from, meaning to say it gets chayes, it gets energy, extra, hashpa, from the moitza pi Hashem, from the source of the 10 spheres. And going into this a little bit more, he explains, Ak, the level we call Adam Kadmon, is called the general world of Bria. We know there's Atzilus, Bir, Yitzir, Asiya. But in a more general sense, we have other levels that correspond to all of these four realms. Adam Kadmon corresponds to the world of Bria in a more general sense. Olam HaTohu, which is beneath Adam Kadmon, corresponds to the general world of Yetzirah. That's where there's a revelation of what is hidden in Adam Kadmon, in Ak. These come to Yetzirah through the Havolim of the oizen, the choitem, and the peh. This is a Kabbalistic concept, but they come somehow through the ears and the nose and the mouth of Adam Kadmon. That's how they come into the realm of Nikudim. Now, Atzilus is called the world of Tikkun. And in the more general sense, it's the level of Asiya, of all the worlds. Because in that world, the Iris and the Kalim are measured, they're balanced. and its root is in a ray that comes from the metzach of Ak, the forehead of Ak. In any case, for the world of Atzilus to get extra hashpah, that happens through the Torah. And that's why it's called Yichya Ha'adam, that the man lives, the level of Malchus of Atzilus gets extra chayas through this concept of Moitza Pi Hashem, the source of the 10 spheres, which in the realm of Nikudim, the 63 letter name of Hashem, that gives extra life to the realm of Atzilus. And this is accomplished through the Torah and the mitzvahs, which is called Hashem's bread, because all of the Torah and mitzvahs are associated with us, with elevating the level of noiga, klipas noiga, which the source of which is in olam hatohu. And therefore, by doing the Torah and the mitzvahs, we bring the Ratzon Elyon, the supernal will of Hashem, which is associated with Keser Elyon, the crown, which is included within it also the Keser of Tohu. And all of this comes into Malchus of Atzilus. So that's why it's Yichya Ha'adam. There's extra chayas given to that level that is called man. Alter Rebbe says in the parentheses, this relates to the medrash of Shoikav Amudei Sheish. The Shoik is the thighs, that's like the pillars of the world, what supports the world. What supports the world is the Torah and the mitzvahs. And these are sheish, they are fulfilled with the parts of the world that were created in the 6 days before man. Man was created last within the 6 days. And what supports the world is the Torah and the mitzvahs that are created in the 6 days before mankind was created. And this is the concept of Yichya Adam Malchus of Atzilus lives. Within Malchus of Atzilus, normally the revelation, the Or, is mugbal b'kelim. It's limited according to the level of the kelim of Atzilus. But in order to get an extra revelation, it has to be from a higher level. This also brings about a tesefes oros in Gan Eden, extra revelations in Gan Eden. Like it says, schar mitzvah mitzvah. The schar of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself, the divine revelation that comes from that mitzvah. Gan Eden is in the world of Bria, the regular world of Bria, that's lower than the world of Atzilus. That's where the tzaddikim get the pleasure from the ray of the Shekhinah. And the true pleasure is not from the regular oiros that are hidden within the kelim, but rather from the oiros that break through the kelim and are more revealed. In Atzilus, the oiros are melubash in the kelim. They're enclosed in the kelim cover on them. Not so what comes through the kelim into Gan Eden. And therefore what comes into the kelim of Gan Eden is usually a ha'ora mitzumtzemes, is usually a very limited ray. However, by adding the oiros into the kelim of Atzilus of Tohu, those oiros are so intense that they break through the kelim, and therefore they come into Gan Eden in a way of tosefes or extra revelation. This is what we mean when we say the bracha before the mitzvah, Asher Kedeshanu Mitzvah Tzivanu, that Hashem sanctifies us with his mitzvahs when he commands us, meaning to say that we bring extra sanctity into ourselves. It's not just into the world of Atzilus and Gan Eden, but it's also into the man down here. He gets a Ratzon Ha'elyon, which is associated with B'chol Ma'odecha. The love of B'chol Nafshecha is associated with Memale Kol Almin, the level of Hashem that fills the world. B'chol Ma'odecha is associated with Soviv Kol Almin, where he has a love that is beyond a keli. It's beyond being contained. Rather, he has a love that's kol she'eri levavi. He yearns to depart from his keli, because he has drawn into himself the Ratzon Elyon, the supernal will that's beyond Atzilus, through Torah and mitzvahs. And that's why he gets this Ratzon in himself. And he also is lachmu b'lachmi. He is getting spiritual nourishment that is compared to bread through Torah. This relates to the pasuk Vayidar Moshe Rashi Matos Livnei Yisrael, also referring to the Ratzon Elyon coming into a person. The Matos are the Shvatim. The Shvatim had 4 different flags. Yehuda was one of them. He represents the malachim that are on the right side, that had the face of a lion, the right side of the divine chariot, the Merkava, the Yechezkel saw. And these 12 shvatim, there were 3, by the way, in each one of the 4 flags, for a total of 12. These are associated with the realm of Tikkun. As the Pasuk says, Shem Elokeinu Nidgoel, and that has to do with the flag, that they relate, these shvatim relate to the world of Elokeinu, which is already associated with Tikkun. These are also associated with the midos that come from Bina and Das. The Yud Beis Gule Alachsin, the 12 lines that connect these spheres that are below Chachma, Bina, and Das. So Bina and Das are the source of these 12 lines. The 12 Shvatim, as we know them, are normally associated with the world of Bria, which is why they're associated with the different angels, like we said, but their source is in the 12 lines, diagonal lines of Atzilos that connect the lower spheres. So this is all the Matos. The Roshei HaMatos is the Ratzon that's beyond Bina and Das. Bina and Das are compared to the head, compared to the brain, and the Ratzon that's beyond Bina and Das is compared to the actual skull, which is the actual head. How do the Matos get the Roshei HaMatos? How do they get this level of Ratzon Elyon? It comes through Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is Das Elyon. He represents Yesod Abba, which is an aspect of Chachma. It's through Chachma that we get the Re'usa de Liba. Why is that? Because Kabbalistically, there's a connection between Chachma and Ratzon. It says Abba, which is Chachma, Yonik Mimazal Hashmini. It gets nourished from the 8th of the 13 Midas Arachana. And that's the one that we call the Noitzer. And the letters of Noitzer is the same as Ratzon HaElyon. This is the Ratzon HaElyon that is before Atzilus. And because Chachma nourishes from there, that's why B'Chachma Yivne Bayis, the whole house, which is Atzilus, so to speak, is created through Chachma because of its connection to the Ratzon Elyon. Alter Rebbe points out in parentheses that the letters for Noitzer is the same as Tzinor and Ratzon as well. Tzinor is a pipe. So it's like the connection, the bringing down of the Ratzon. And the Rebbe points out in the back that Ratzon is the same gematria as Moshe, 345. It's actually +1 in Makoilo. So Moshe is 345 +1 for the name is 346. Another pshat in Veidaber Moshe Roshei HaMatos is, Alter is going to give another 4 interpretations for the Matos here. First was the Shvatim. The second one is as follows. It says in the Medrash Rabbah, concerning Kol Eila Shivtei Yisrael, these are the Shvatim of Yisrael. It compares these to the Nesiim of Yishmael. There were 12 Nesiim. However, those are like a cloud. The word Nasi can also mean clouds. So they passed quickly. But Elu Matos, these Shvatim, the Jewish Shvatim, are Chazakim, they're strong like a mata, like a staff. Like it says, Shvuos Matos Omer Sela, Hashem says, he swears about the Shvatim forever. Similarly, it says in Shir HaShirim, Mitase Shel Shloima is referring to this concept of Shvuos Matos, the Shvuos, the Matos that Hashem swore about. What does it mean that they are chayzik, that they are strong? Similar to the concept of Esan, which is also strong. Similar to the concept of the bones that are coming from the brain, which represents das, strength. And this is like it says that Hashem swore to the Shvatim just like he swore to the Avos. Hashem swore to the Avos that their children will last forever, that they'll inherit Eretz Yisrael. That those same Shavuos, which represents strength, Shavuos Matos, like we said before, that came to the Shvatim as well. Like it says, Hashem Ishbata Lavasenu Mimei Kedem. This Shavuot came to the Shvatim as well. And this is the meaning of Eidaber Moshe al Roshei Matos. Moshe is the one who brings this strength of the Shvua of Hashem Shbat Lavasenu Mekedem into the Matos, into the Shvatim, which gives them the strength, which is why it says about them, Shvuas Matos Omer Sela. Sela indicates something eternal that does not stop. Okay, another pshat Alter Rebbe says number 2 is Matos is referring to Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. A mata is a staff, and it's referring to the fact that the Shvatim are receiving from the Eitz Chaim, which relates to the stick that Yaakov Avinu peeled when he was mating the sheep. Another pshat of mata is milashon memshala visrara. Mata is like a scepter, which indicates leadership, like mata uzcha, yishlach Hashem, his glorious staff. And this is the concept of kisarisa imelekim. And Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who gives the shvatim this koyach to have memshala and shrara. Okay, so these were 3 interpretations, besides the mata, which means shvatim, another 3 interpretations. That it also means the strength, it also means the sticks, it also means rulership. All of these come through Moshe. And as a result of this, we have Zeh HaDavar, this is the matter. What does it mean? Like it says, these words that I'm commanding to you should be on your heart and you should speak in them. Meaning to say the same thing that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke about 3,000 years ago. You yourself should speak in them. And this is accomplished when we have the Ru'usa Deliba, the awakening of the heart, which connects us to a level that is beyond time and beyond space. And therefore, even though we're here, wherever we are, distant in time and space from the time of the giving of the Torah, we can still have those words in our mouth at that time because we're connected to Hashem in a way that's beyond time and space. Not so the other Nevi'im, their Nevuah came in a way of Koi, which is only Kidmusenu, similar to the revelation that came from above. This is the actual, very same revelation through Moshe Rabbeinu inspiring us in the way of Rusa Deliba. We can reach this level of Zeh HaDavar to actually speak the words of Hashem, so to speak. The pasuk continues, Ish ki yidar neder, when a person will make a neder, an oath. And we know that this pasuk means sheyidar b'davar hanadar, that a person has to make an oath using something that can be made an oath with. So you can make an oath to make a korban. And then to make a regular oath, you have to use the concept of the korban, saying that this other item should be similar to a korban. When you make a korban, you sanctify it with your mouth, and then you bring the korban and it actually elevates you. Like it says, Tamam yeh l'rotzain. It should be complete and it should give you rotzain. They are for rotzain. So you sanctify them, but then they give you something back, which is ratzon, a desire to serve Hashem. Now, why is it that we have to sanctify the korban with our mouth first? Why can't we just bring it as a korban? We know that the korbanos are made of animals, and they have a very high spiritual source. They are from the Moitza Pi Hashem that we spoke about earlier, from the world of Tayu, the source of the mouth of Hashem. However, because they're down here in this physical world, they came to this world through a matter called Shviras HaKelim. So right here, they are not Kedusha. They are, in fact, in the realm of Klipas Nog, an unholy state. And therefore, we who have a more revealed kind of holiness in our Nefesh Elekis, which is associated with the 45-letter name of Hashem, we are able to purify it and sanctify it. And this happens through our mouths. By saying that it's a korban, we bring the or makif into it. From the speech of man can be created an or makif. In the parentheses, it says that this is the concept of asim dvar beficha uvitzel yodei kisisicha, I've put my words in your mouth and I've covered you, protected you with the tzeil, with the shade of my hand. Shade is a level of makif. So that's why when we speak, we give power to the animal to lift it up from the level of noiga, which is klipa, and bring it up to its source from the world of tohu, the source of the speech of the 10 utterances. The concept that a man can create a level of makif is similar to what it says in the Eitz Chaim, that from the kav and the chut that comes after the tzimtzum is where the igulim come from. So Kabbalistically, Hashem made a tzimtzum, a contraction of his revelation to create the world. Then a kav, a little thread of light came in. And then there were other worlds that got their energy from that kav, and those worlds became igulim, which are worlds of makif. So even though the kav is a pnimi, it's a more internal kind of revelation. Nevertheless, a more general revelation, a revelation of makif, came through that kav v'chut. This is a similar concept that even though the man represents pnimius, nevertheless, he is also able to create a level of makif. And that is through his mouth, as we said. Nevertheless, this only creates the kedusha of the carbon in a makif way. But in order for the carbon to actually achieve kedusha in pnimius, and therefore lift up the person, we can create the kedusha of the carbon in a makif way. But the actual pnimius aspect of the carbon being lifted up is something that's beyond us, because the carbon has a higher spiritual source than us, and that is something that Hashem accomplishes, so to speak, when the carbon is actually brought on the mizbeach. This is similar to the idea of Sfiras Omer, that when we count Omer and we say the bracha, we bring about an Or Makif, but the Or Pnimi is something that's beyond us. That's something Hashem has to do, and at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, it happened through the carbon Se'orim. So this is the concept of a neder. Again, we're explaining the concept of yidor neder. So the carbon is a similar concept to a neder. A neder is a siyag leprishus. It helps us separate ourselves from things that are not proper. A person feels that this particular food, for example, he cannot lift it up to its source, because he himself feels too connected to Gashmias. That's why he separates from it. Now, by making a neder, he points out how this thing is in fact holier than him in its root and source, and that's why he doesn't want to ruin that by eating it. So how does he do that? He makes a neder, and he applies the kedusha that's in a carbon to it, thus bringing about a revelation of Or Makif from its high spiritual source, which is Moitze Pi Hashem. That's why it says in Chazal, whoever vows, it's as if he's vowing with the life of the king, because all of the Makifim come from Bina, which is called the life of the king. He's bringing about that revelation into whatever item he is sanctifying. And this is why we say Parshas brings to Kedusha, because by separating ourselves from something, we are pointing out and bringing to light the Kedusha that is within that thing. Because the reason we're separating from it is because we're recognizing its latent and hidden Kedusha. That's why Chazal say you have to make a neder b'davar on neder, using something that can be vowed about. Just like a carbon is elevated through our statement of our mouth, that the person sanctifies it, this draws on it an Or Makif, and that's the concept of Kadosh, Kiddushin. Same concept of Kiddushin when we get married, that we're bringing in an Or Makif. After that, we can have the Or Pnimi, which is the concept of the Yichud and the unification of the Chassan and the Kala. But it starts with the Kiddushin, which is an Or Makif. Kiddusha is to bring down a level that's beyond your regular level that you're operating on. Same thing when we bring a carbon, we bring an Or Makif into it. Then when we actually sacrifice it, then it becomes a carbon for Hashem. Then the Kedusha is drawn into it in a pneumistic way, and then it's able to elevate us through the fact that we're bringing it, sacrificing it, perhaps even eating it. That elevates us in a very meaningful way. Same thing when we make a carbon, when we make a neder, through the speech, we bring the kedusha into that item that we're making a neder about, and that lifts up that item. And this is the whole concept of making a neder l'shem shamayim, which helps a person reach the level of precious. Nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe finishes the mimer. We have to say bli neder nowadays. And the Alter Rebbe explains elsewhere, the concept is that we no longer have the same power with our mouths to accomplish the same bringing down of the or makif that they used to have in the olden days. Now we start the next mimer. V'isha ki siddur neder laHashem. When a woman will make a vow to Hashem, and it finishes off Benurea Beis Avia when she is a young woman in her father's house. So we're going to explain what is the level of a woman in terms of serving Hashem, what it means to be in her father's house, what it means when she's young, and how this all ties in to the concept of a neder. So the Isha is Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people, the source of the Neshamas Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael is a spiritual level that is the source of the Neshamas Yisrael. And that's why when we lane this pasuk, the trup, the tune for it, is a zakif gadol. V'isha ki siddur neder laHashem. So the word isha is saying with a zakif gadol. And zakif means to lift up. Gadol means to lift up in a major way. That's because this word, V'isha, is referring to the Jewish people. The Jewish people, their source is a majorly high source. Like it says, Yisrael Olu b'machshava, we came up in Hashem's thought. Hashem chachma yasar aretz, the source of the eretz, which is Malchus, which is Knesset Yisrael, is b'chachma, is in Hashem's chachma. That's the source of the Jewish people, which is a high level. That's why it's called Zakif Gadol. In the parentheses, he explains that Zakif Gadol is referring to Tshuva Ilah, and Zakif Katoin is referring to Tshuva Tata. Continuing in the Maimer, that's why Knesset Yisrael are called Isha, a woman. Like it says, Kidiksiv Bayim Honum Hashem Tikri Ishi. On that day, Hashem says, we will call Hashem our man. So we are called the woman, we receive from Hashem, and in the time to come, we will recognize that and we will call Hashem our man. Why is it, the Alter Rebbe asks, that this is only true about the future time? Why not today? So the Alter Rebbe says, we know that there are three geulos. The first geula, which is the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, is the level of chesed. In the merit of Avram. That Beis Hamikdash stood in the merit of Avram. The second Geula, which is the second Beis Hamikdash, that stood in the merit of Yitzchak. That's why it was not a Geula Shlema. We know the second Beis Hamikdash was missing certain things. We also know it had certain advantages over the first Beis Hamikdash, because Gevurah has certain advantages over Chesed. Whereas the Geula Shlishis, the third Geula, will be in the Schus of Yaakov Avinu. This is what it says in the Gemara, V'holcha Amim Rabim. The many nations will go and they will say, let's go up to Beis Elikei Yaakov, the house of Elikei Yaakov. The Gemara says that they call the Beis Hamikdash not what Avram called it, which is a mountain, Bahar Hashem Yirah, not what Yitzchak called it, which is a field, like it says, Yitzchak Pasada. Some say that was referring to Har Maria, but rather Yaakov. It's called the name that Yaakov called it, like he called it Bias. In the story with the dream, he said this will be a Beis Hashem. So we see that Yaakov, who is the Bechir Shaba'avos, he is the choicest one of the forefathers. He had only righteous children. And that is the level that is associated with the third Beis Hamikdash, which lasts forever. This is also the level of emes, like it says, Titin emes Yaakov, give truth to Yaakov. And the Torah is also called Torah's emes, like it says, Torah's emes haisu b'fiu. Karev Hashem l'chol karev l'chol ha'sheikru ve'emes. Hashem is close to those that call him in truth, and emes is called Torah. Like Chazal say, and this is how we see that the third Beis Hamikdash is associated with Yaakov. and with Torah and with emes is because it says that Ein Golius Miskansis Ela B'Schus HaMishnayos, the Golius will only be gathered in the merit of Mishnayos. Like it says, Gam ki yitnu b'goyim at akapzim. Also, when you'll be placed in the goyim, I will gather you in, and it can be read as Gam ki yasnu. Even when you will learn, like the word Tana, in the goyim, I will gather you in. So the redemption is associated with Torah. And that we know the third Beis Hamikdash is associated with Yaakov. So we see that connection of Torah and Yaakov and the third Beis Hamikdash. Why is it that the Midah of Yaakov is called Emes? Certainly Ava and Yira, which are the Midas of Avram and Yitzchak, they also must be true. Can't say they're not true. Also, what is the Midah of Yaakov in man? So in the parentheses, he says that the meaning of emes does not mean the opposite of sheker, the opposite of a lie. Rather, it says, like the source of water that does not, that it doesn't disappoint with its water. Meaning to say that these rivers are not called Nahoris HaMechazvin, Naharis, that literally means rivers that are lying. But it doesn't mean that the rivers lie. A river can't lie. It rather means that they're not reliable, that they stop from time to time. Similar to what the Isha Shunamis said to Elisha when her son died, when he promised her a son, she said, do not be disingenuous with your maidservant. What she meant is, I don't want a child who's going to die. She didn't want a male child that would have a sitra denukva and a shama from the side of the feminine, which would not be lasting. In general, zohar, lashon zohar, is associated with something that's more lasting. The kevas with something that's less lasting. Because by way of example, a woman in her life has more troubles. She gives birth naturally. So it's a natural thing for her to have their ups and downs. Whereas a man can theoretically be healthy his whole life. He doesn't have to experience those ups and downs necessarily. So she wanted a son that would not have a sitra and a shama from the sitra of nukva. That's what she meant when she said, Al techase, of course, he ended up dying anyway. Elisha had to bring him back to life. But that's what she was asking for in the first place. And that's why these waters, these rivers, are not kosher for the mei chatas, for the water, the paraduma, which has to be mayim chaim. It has to be similar to the eitz chaim, which is the source of the Torah, and that's a place that has no changes, associated with level of ani Hashem lo shanis. I Hashem have not changed, and that's the real concept of emes, which is something that does not change because it comes from Hashem, which does not change. That's why the Geula of Mitzrayim is considered a Geula from which we said Shira in the feminine, because there were other Goliyos after that. Whereas the future redemption is going to be a Shir in Lashon Zohar, like it says Shir LaHashem Shir Chadash, because the future redemption is not going to have any other exile after it. Like we said, the masculine is associated with something that's longer lasting. So this is why Yaakov is considered emes. Like we said, his geula, the geula associated with him, is everlasting. There's a medrash that relates to this when it says, "Not lakadosh baruch hu sichasan shel avos, v'asan mafteach legeulasan shel banim." Hashem took the talk of the avos and made it the key for the redemption of their descendants. Yaakov said, "V'haya Hashem li lelekim." Hashem should be for me Elikim. Hashem says, I promise, all of the toivos and the brachos and the nachamos, the goodness, the blessings, and the comfort that I'm going to give to your children, I'm going to use this same language of v'haya. Like it says, v'haya b'yimahu yitzu ma'im chaim Yerushalayim, and that day the living waters will come out from Yerushalayim. V'haya b'yimahu yitakav b'shofar gadol. On that day, Hashem will blow with a great shofar. So these blessings came as a result of Yaakov, who said, "V'haya Hashem li lelekim," which represents a level of revelation of the essence of Hashem that's beyond Havai. And that's why it can make Havaya into Elikim. This is the same level that's going to be revealed in the future time through Yaakov. This is connected to what it says, I believe it's in the Zohar, about Mashiach. Yoram v'nisa v'gavoya ma'od. Yoram is referring to Citron, the side of Avram, and Nisa must be Yitzchak, and Ma'od is Yaakov. So we know that there are three kavim, there are three paths in serving Hashem. We say it in Pirkei Avos: Torah, Avoda, and Gemilas Chasadim. Yaakov represents Torah, like it says, "Vayakom Eidos b'Yaakov." Of course, Avram represents Gemilas Chasadim, and Yitzchak represents Avoda. So now he explains why Yaakov represents Torah. The levels of Ava and Yira, which are associated with Avraham, have a certain sense of ego. A person has a feeling of love. It's Yesh Mishaya. So it's an individual that loves or an individual that fears. But learning Torah has to be with complete bittul, complete humility, not having any place whatsoever for himself. And that's the main revelation of Emes. The revelation of Hashem in front of whom there is nothing whatsoever. The way that a person can achieve this level of Torah, the light of Torah, is through the level of Yaakov. Yaakov represents humility. Like it says, Al Tiri Telas Yaakov. Yaakov is associated with the level of Telas, like a worm. And that's why it represents, or he represents, the level of learning Torah, Tiferes, which is a blend of Chesed and Gvura. And because this is the level that brings the Atzmos or Ein Sof, the infinite light of Hashem, into the world, that's why the revelation that happens through this level is an everlasting one with a third Beis Hamikdash that will last forever. May it come speedily in our days. So that's the end of the first ois of the Maimer Isha Kisidar Neder. And we'll stop here as far as page Hey Gimel of the Likkutei Torah is concerned.